Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today I have my 5 takeaways series. We'll be dropping this every Monday from now until the end of the NFL season, covering that week's slate of football. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's jump into my first takeaway. Cam Akers is back. So I put him on the cover of this video. And to me, I really like what I'm seeing from Cam Akers. And I feel like I'm going to get burned again. But here we go. He might be overtaking Dameon Pierce for the RB2 role on the Texans. I'm not exactly sure. But he starred in the third preseason game. I mean, he did. He looked good. He looked back to 100%. Now, that seems impossible to me, given that he has not one, but 2 Achilles tears, one of which was less than a year ago. That seems very odd, but he had 7 carries for 53 yards and 3 receptions for 19 yards. That I don't care too much about, other than that he did look healthy. He looked healthy. I don't care about the stats too much. But this is more important. He played all 13 snaps with the first team. J.J. Taylor, British Brooks, Jawar Jordan, they all played with backups. What that means is that Akers is the RB3 right now. Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce did not play. Akers is clearly RB3 at this time. But I continuously hear that Dameon Pierce may be traded. If that did occur, Cam Akers would be the RB2. And somehow he's only 25. I feel like he's ancient, but he's not. He's only like 3 months older than Dylan Lobb, to give you an example. And the Texans do have Daria Gunbowale as an RB3 special teamer type player. So they don't have room for 3 other tailbacks to be active on the game day roster, which is why trading Dameon Pierce could make some sense. Akers is a must-add in all dynasty leagues because we know he was talented. And if he's going to have some sort of opportunity, dynasty leagues are deep, he must be added in all of them. Next up, the Panthers offense took shape. So just a few things. I thought it was interesting. It was nice to see the starters play. Bryce Young, very impressive. He one drive, but it was very impressive. 6 for 8 for 70 yards and a touchdown on that drive. It was nice to actually see him play in Dave Canales' offense. I liked to see that. Next part, 2. Chuba Hubbard is the workhorse running back until Jonathan Brooks returns. Hubbard took 10 of 12 snaps with Young on the field. He had 3 carries for 15 yards on the pass-heavy drive. And I think Hubbard is a solid throw-in in Dynasty. For those needing an early season running back, a piece who you might be able to get some starts out of while you figure out your running back room. The Panthers' 3 starting wide receivers was very clear in this game. This was their dress rehearsal. And the 3 starting wide receivers right now are Diontae Johnson, wide receiver 1, Adam Thielen, wide receiver 2, and Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver 3, not Xavier Legette. Legette only played 2 of the snaps with Bryce Young. And look, he's a first-round pick. He will get an opportunity. I'm not saying Xavier Legette is not going to get an opportunity. His career is over. I'm not saying that. But at this point, I wouldn't bother drafting him in any redraft league you're playing. And in Dynasty, I'm dropping him. But if you can get him for a late 25 second, now that the price has gone down, I think I would still do that. I haven't just written off a first-round pick because he didn't play well in the preseason. But I am a little concerned, and I can tell you that week 1, Xavier Legette will not be one of their 3 starting wide receivers. That much is clear. And lastly, the Panthers' tight end situation still isn't clear. Ja'Tavion Sanders played as the starter, but both Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas were held out due to injury. I think this is going to be a rotation. So, I would caution people against getting too carried away with Ja'Tavion Sanders. This is a team that's going to play a lot of 11 personnel. They're going to focus on the receivers in the offense. I'm not super excited for Ja'Tavion Sanders yet. Takeaway number 3. Jalen McMillan is the real deal. He is. He looks really good. Really, really good. Looked great all summer. He played 7 snaps with Baker Mayfield. All of them. Catching 1 pass for 28 yards. Again, the stats are not super important in preseason. Who plays with who is what I care about more. And he played all 7 snaps at that stage. The Buccaneers beat reporters have been consistent. I have not read one negative report, nothing bad about Jalen McMillan. It's all been, He looks good. He will open the season as the second outside wide receiver. That is what I'm hearing. And why do I believe that? They also said Chris Godwin will play the slot. That's what they said. They said that Liam Cohen, the new offense coordinator, said this many, many times. He said it. Now, it's great for someone to say it, but it did occur. It occurred. Godwin played in the slot on 6 of 7 snaps for the starters. He's been used in the slot throughout practices, and it was nice to see that with Baker Mayfield, they kept their word. What that means is Trey Palmer, who played in the slot last year, he's a bench player. Essentially, they have Jalen McMillan is taking the role that Chris Godwin had last year. And Chris Godwin is now going to be the slot receiver and also play in 2 wide receiver sets, although they didn't run any 2 wide receiver sets. So I don't expect them to run a lot of 12 personnel at all. They don't have a good second tight end, and they have 4 NFL quality wide receivers. Now, in terms of acquiring Jalen McMillan, I think that might be difficult to do because there's a lot of hype, but maybe people are sleeping on it. I've already moved him up to my Dynasty wide receiver 64. And to give an example, in the rookie process, I had Roman Wilson significantly ahead of Jalen McMillan. That has now flipped. Jalen McMillan is now ahead of Roman Wilson, who has done absolutely nothing during camp. So just an actionable example of something I've switched in my rankings. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask in advance questions for the YouTube videos. Tiers begin at just $6 a month and include all of that. And for now, redraft and start sit content will only be on the Patreon. This channel will be, with rare exception, limited to Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out my Why You Should Join the Patreon video on the channel. It'll help you learn about exactly what I'm offering on the Patreon. I really appreciate everyone who signed up and any new patrons who join. You can click the link at the top right corner, patreon.com/fantasy advice. Yes, I really do have that link, and that's where you can join the Patreon. I appreciate everyone who checks it out. Next up, Jordan Mason made his case for RB2. Mason played 21 of 24 snaps for the starters, taking 8 carries for 42 yards and touchdown with 1 catch for 7 yards. He's way ahead of Isaac Guerrero, who mostly played with backups. Mason also looks far better than previous years. I just think Elijah Mitchell lost this position due to injury. He's just too inconsistent in staying on the field. I do believe that the 49ers keep 4 halfbacks plus Kyle Juszczyk as they've done in previous years, including Isaac Guerrero, Mitchell, Mason, and of course, Christian McCaffrey. But now that Guerrero is healthy, they might be open to a move. They have another promising young running back in Cody Schrader. Could they trade Elijah Mitchell as he's in the last year of his rookie deal? We'll have to see about that. But Mason is their running back too. Mason should be rostered in all Dynasty leagues. But I wouldn't cut Mitchell or Guerrero just yet. Guerrero's still a rookie, and he did look good, show some explosiveness. And Elijah Mitchell, we know, is a good player when healthy. So again, these types of running backs, we don't cut them in Dynasty leagues. So I would still roster all 49ers running backs. Lastly, last takeaway, Adonai Mitchell might overcome his situation. He's seeing very good usage this preseason. This week, he had 2 catches for 18 yards and a touchdown. That's not so important. But what is important is that he did see 3 or 4 snaps in 12 personnel. They already feel comfortable, the Colts, using Adonai Mitchell, both in the slot in 11 personnel and the outside in 12 personnel, as there's no slot receiver there, which is a good sign for a rookie. Additionally, the Colts have moved away. Last year, if you remember, the Colts used a lot of 12 personnel. This year, not so much. They only played 4 of 25 snaps with the starters in 12 personnel. If that's their offensive plan, their wide receivers might be significantly more valuable than we previously believed. However, in terms of buying Adonai Mitchell, that may be difficult to do. His price is rising. The Josh Downs injury is not helping. So I'm not sure really what you can do about this, but I just wanted to point out that I am significantly rising on Adonai Mitchell from his usage in the preseason. Now, I want to jump into some NFL news, a few things there. So let's jump into that. Juju Smith-Schuster signs with the Chiefs. Now, I really think this is a very, very important sign. No, I don't. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this. This is totally irrelevant. I don't care about this at all. I've already given it probably 20 more seconds than it deserved of my time. Next, Nick Chubb will remain on the PUP. This is not really news. It was beyond obvious, I think, to anyone who was watching that Chubb was not playing week 1. He will miss the first 4 games of the 2024 NFL season. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to come back. The vibes kind of feel as if it's going to be a long time. I do think Chubb plays this year. I don't think you can count on him for this year or for Dynasty at all. I'm just I'll let someone else deal with the headache of Nick Chubb. I just don't think that the upside of a soon-to-be 29-year-old running back returning from an extremely severe injury is all that great. So, again, I'm just not super in on Nick Chubb. But I do hope he comes back just because he is one of my favorite players, just in terms of watching football. One of my favorite running backs to watch. Next up, Jacoby Brissett suffered a shoulder injury. He only managed to play 8 snaps until the injury, completing 2 of 4 passes for 19 yards. He exited with that right throwing shoulder injury. Drake May replaced him and looked great. Now, incompetent head coach Gerard Mayo, totally incompetent already. First, he says that Drake May is the second best quarterback last night. Then today, he says Drake May has outplayed Jacoby Brissett. Incompetent head coach Mayo, I think, is what we're going to call him for now. But he needs to do the right thing. Someone from the front office needs to force him to do the right thing, which is to start Drake May. We need to see Drake May get some live reps. I don't care that he's going to be killed behind the offensive line, because how is the offensive line going to improve between now and week 10? What is going to change? How is the offensive line going to be better? It's not. You got to see what you have. You got to give the rookie an opportunity. Jacoby Brissett looks not so good compared to Drake May, who looks really, really excellent. So I hope incompetent Mayo does the right thing, or is pushed to do the right thing, and gets Drake May out there. Now, in terms of Patreon questions, I have 3 of those. Really been moving on this video. I think I've covered a lot of ground. Our first one, got any thoughts on Jacob Cowing? How deep of a stash is he? I don't know. I mean, I don't see how Jacob Cowing is ever going to be relevant. I mean, I still think Brandon Ayuk is going to resign. But even if he doesn't, the 49ers obviously want another wide receiver as part of that deal, which is, I think, what's holding everything up. How is Cowing going to see the field this year? Ricky Pearsall is returning to practice. He's obviously ahead of Cowing. Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings are ahead of Cowing right now. Injuries happen, and he's looked good, and I like the talent, but it's just so hard to hang on to this type of wide receiver stash forever. So while I'm okay with him, yeah, I'd call him a relatively deep stash. As the season is getting near, it seems like trading in my league has become extremely difficult, and everyone is demanding unreasonable prices for trades. Do you find this to be normal? To some degree, having higher prices for players now makes sense because there's more certainty. Extremely unreasonable is never normal. It can be a bigger problem, but I'd rather people are active and responsive and just don't want to trade. I mean, if they're responding and they just don't want to do trades, it is what it is. A lot of people are afraid to trade or don't like trading. The bigger problem for me is if offers are timing out and are being ignored. That'll be a reason for me to leave a league. But just because people don't want to trade or have unreasonable prices, that's not a reason for me to leave a league. And lastly, JSN. Do you still believe in JSN? Got offers this week on 2 contender teams, both for my first, just seeing where we are with him. Yeah, I still believe in him. I mean, he is very talented. But for a contender, JSN's not high on my list of players to buy. And buying JSN for a future first, especially in Superflex, is not how I'm going to spend it. I usually don't give up future firsts unless elite players are involved. We don't know if JSN is elite yet. So, yes, I still believe in him. No, not probably at the price of a future first, especially not in Superflex. Now, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty, Redraft, Start Sit, and more. And every sign-up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.